Good afternoon, everybody. This is Module 2 of EDUC 5433, Research-Based Literacy Instruction. And so I'm here to go over a few things. So every week, like I said, I'm going to show you what we're going to do for the week, explain it, and then offer a little bit of information about content. So here we go. I'm going to stop my screen here for a second and find my page, and then we will get started. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to put this over here. Sorry, it's taken me a bit to get a little bit discombobulated. Okay, so here's our class. I'm going to go over to content, and it is module 2. So I'm going to go to module 2. Remember how it works. We always have first our aims and objectives for the module. So let's look at that. So our learning objectives, we want to consider how student composition in today's classrooms have changed and how these diverse populations impact how teachers teach. We want to develop and implement a literacy program based on the needs and characteristics of our students, adapt instruction to foster the needs of English language learners. We want to know what that MTSS process is, and when we want to make accommodations, of course, for our students based on their dialect and cultures and so forth. So that is our objectives. What are we going to read? Well, this week we're going to be reading chapter 2 of your textbook called Teaching All Students. And in this chapter, you're going to kind of review everything that you probably know from if you're a teacher, and that is all of the different types of students that we have. And so in this chapter, it talks about economically disadvantaged children. What are principles of teaching kids in poverty? We talk about kids that have learning difficulties and reading difficulties. We have in that chapter, it talks about students with ADHD and ADD. It talks about students with intellectual abilities. Then we has information about students with language and speech disorders, students that are gifted, students are English language learners, and all of those students are in your classroom. So in the chapter, one important thing it talks about is RTI, or response of intervention. And one of the big important parts of response to intervention is you always need screenings. And so I want you to think about that screening. Does your school have a screening that you do for reading and math? So usually schools will do some kind of a screening. So I want you to kind of think about, if you go to the doctor, there are certain screenings that you have. If something shows up as maybe problematic, then you get more diagnostic assessments. The same thing with what we do in academics. So we usually do a screener for reading and math. And then if there are issues, then that might be followed up with more diagnostic types of assessments for kids to figure out exactly what they need. So this chapter is all about all the different types of students in your classroom. And one of the things we're going to be focusing on in this class is, in order to respond to them and ensure that every child learns, that each child is where they need to be, we really need to start with assessments and make sure we're doing assessments. We need to really look at data and then pinpoint that to offer them the interventions that they need. So we'll be doing a lot of that in class. There are some videos to watch about language, about the funds of knowledge that students come to us with, and then about MTSS. So you just have some videos that will support what you've read. There are 2 assignments in this module. The first assignment is to do a discussion forum about 2 books that you have read about students from diverse, culturally diverse, from students that have, it could be diverse when it comes to handicap, with learning disabilities, any of the things that you read about. And what are 2 books that you have read to your students to help them learn about other students. So you're going to use the video feature and you're going to share 2 books. I don't want you to just tell about the books. I actually want you to show the books to students. Summarize the book with 2 or 3 sentences, explain how that book could be used in your classroom. So I wanted to start by showing you 2 books, and I actually learned about these books from my students, all of you. And it is an author called Kathy Hoopman, and Kathy has about 5 books in this series, but there's 2 that I really want to focus on. And the first book is called All Dogs Have ADHD. And I'm just going to read a couple pages of this book, All Dogs Have ADHD. And if you have a dog, I do not, maybe you agree. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder may be detected soon after a child is born. An ADHD child may not sleep as much as his parents. His first steps aren't steps, they're attempts to escape. Because the world was meant to be explored, and he knows what he wants, and he wants it now. And so the entire book, it talks about students that have ADHD, but how it shows dogs. And what I like is that it really gives the advantages of students. So I like that it doesn't just come from a deficit perspective, but from a very, this is a good perspective, because we know kids with ADHD, when they are in an activity that they love, they can be focused. So I like that one. Now, if you think about animals, then that other book says all cats are on the autism spectrum. So now you're going to be looking at your dogs and cats very differently. So a few things about the autism. Instead of coming to people for comfort, they may prefer a toy or a pet. They can be extra adventurous and use up their 9 lives too quickly. Autistic people often have exceptionally good hearing, and loud sounds may scare them. So another great book. I like to use these books as a way to talk about neurodivergent and I'm sorry, I sound like a sci-fi movie. Neurodiversity and the importance of meeting the needs, and that this is not a deficit. We're not going to talk about this from a deficit perspective. And it's close to comfort to me because I have one child that is ADHD diagnosis. I have another child that has autism diagnosis. And I showed them this and they thought, yeah, this is true. I have a cat and a dog. So there you go. Those are 2 books. So you share 2 books and tell me how you would use those books to teach about the different types of learners in your classroom. So that's the discussion post. Then you have another assignment. So you're going to do your first article critique. You're going to have 2 of them. I want you to get used to reading research and understanding research and applying research. So in this module, under the Learn section, you're going to see some articles listed. So I'm going to go back to Learn. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the articles that you're going to choose for this assignment. If you want another article that maybe you're NILD and you want to read something that's aligned more with NILD, I'm fine with that. I just want you to give me the article ahead of time so I can review it and make sure it's appropriate. So you're going to pick an article. You're going to write a paper, and it needs to be an APA. You will notice under course resources, I've given you a lot of information about how to do APA formatting. You're going to have maybe 1.5 pages of a summary of the article. This is what was the research? When was it published? What's the topic of the research? What's the design? Was it an experimental design? Was it a correlational? Was it a case study? Who are the subjects? Did it have 100 subjects, or was it a case study with 2 or 3? Was there an intervention? Not all research projects have interventions, but was there? Did you use an instrument? Maybe you did. Maybe you used some type of an assessment. Analyze it the art, how analyze. You're going to have how the research was analyzed, explain the findings, or if it's qualitative, you might explain the themes and the implications. That's one part of the paper. The second part of the paper is your critique of the article. This is where, was this article beneficial or not beneficial? And you're not going to get a bad grade if you say it wasn't beneficial. It's what you feel based on what you read. What, if any, confirmations or contradictions to literacy research were presented? So I want you to think about other research that you have read. Does this corroborate that? Does it oppose that? If this could be incorporated into the literacy community, what would that look like? And how does this research connect to your textbook and literacy practices? So you will need to bring in outside sources to support what you've done. So I'm going to go back here, and I just want to make sure that you know that there is a rubric for this. So you can go here. We can go down here and look at the rubric. And it's in another screen. So now I have to go to my other screen. Here we go. So here is the rubric. The first part is the chosen article. If you used one of the ones that I have, you're going to get 10 points. If you do your own article, that's fine, but it needs to be one that is no more than 5 years old, and it needs to be a research article, a peer-reviewed article. Your summary, it's going to be 1 to 1.5 pages. You're going to synthesize information. You accurately understand the research. You've included all those components. And in your critique, you reflect your astute understanding of the implications. You're going to bring in outside information, outside articles. So that means you're going to have to look up other articles to support or maybe to contradict what that says, what your article says. So it's evident that you have clearly evaluated and you understand the applicability of the research. Your writing, well, look at how you write. Is it fluent? Is it academic writing? Remember, you're in graduate school. We're academic writing. We're not, freelance writing and telling a story here. Our site, we should use in-text citations, and there should be a reference page. According to APA, you need a title page, in-text citations, and a reference page. That's the assignment. But something else I want to go over today too. So those are the 2 assignments. Just as a review, the discussion board, your initial post is due Saturday. Your response to someone else is due Tuesday. The article critique is due Tuesday. So that's the module. Now what I want to do is I want to share a research article, and I'm actually going to post this in your in the this module. So I am sorry. I'm going to try again. See if I can get this. Okay. Well, I'm going to try one more time. Sorry you're having to wait, but okay, try now. Okay, I think I'm ready now. Sorry, it took me a bit. Okay, here we go. Okay, this is an article called A Reader's Guide to a Scientific Research and Scientifically Based Research. And so it's an excellent article. And I didn't make this a required reading, but it's something good that's going to help you, I think, with your critique. So one of the things I want you to realize is the big buzzword is research-based. People say that all the time. This is research-based. All research-based means is it is based on something that has research. What we're really looking for is research that's scientifically has scientific and research based. I'm sorry, not research based, but it has the science behind it. So I'm going to go over what that looks like. What does it mean to have the science behind it, the research science? So what we want is not just research based, but scientifically based research. Okay. So again, anything can be research based if it's just based on research, but what we're looking for is scientifically based. So what makes something scientifically based? That's what this article talks about. Number one, you need control groups. So when you have scientifically based research, you're looking at research that has a control group. And usually that could be one group that has an intervention, one that doesn't have an intervention. We want randomization and matched experiments. So when you're putting kids in groups, it needs to be randomized. That's an important qualification. We want to look at the statistical and educational significance in the sample size. So if you're reading something and it has a sample size of 4, that's very low, unless you're maybe doing a qualitative research with case studies. So we want large sample sizes. So that'll be important. And then there's also research to avoid. So what kind of research do we want to avoid? Well, one is what we call cherry picking. And a lot of publishers do this. Cherry picking is when a researcher, and like I said, many times it's publishers, they will cherry pick and pick one school as the comparison group. So let's say that you are doing an intervention in a school district. So I work at Polk County. Let's say Polk County did this school intervention with every school. Okay. Let's say reading mastery, because they use reading mastery. Let's say they're looking at reading mastery. If they cherry picked and they picked a really low school that made significant gains, then they could say, well, in comparison, this school jumped 20%. But the reality is that school already started really down low. So cherry picking is a way that sometimes researchers will pick the comparison group that helps them. And that kind of goes with bottom fishing. So bottom fishing is a similar thing. Instead of using match similar schools, they'll pick a school that's poor performing so that it looks like the intervention worked better. Pre and post studies. Are the pre and post studies so another common but misleading design is pre and post comparison lacking a control group. You have to have a control group. So those are things you don't want to do. So what we're looking at here is we don't just want research-based articles. We want rigorously evaluated scientific programs that show that they work. And in this class, what we're going to be looking at is I want you to know how to read research and know if it's scientifically based. Okay? Is the research valid? Is the research reliable? You may be in a position where you have to pick curriculum, where you can pick resources. I would hope that you would want to pick those resources that are scientifically based and that you know how to read the research to understand that. I've been a curriculum director and I've been a principal. And I can tell you as a principal, there are many times that I have received curriculum that was not scientifically based and it did not work. But the school district purchased it, and so then it became a mandate, right? So we need to, when we make these decisions, we need to know how to interpret the research to know if something works or if it doesn't work according to research. It's kind of funny, but one thing that just strikes me, and we're going to actually talk about this and look at the research in this class, is accelerated reader. Tons of schools all over the United States use it, but I'm going to show you from a lot of research that there's absolutely no scientifically based research that shows that it works. None. But yet we're spending all this money on it. So again, as you do this article critique, I want you to have the framework, not just looking at a summary, but you're going to be summarizing it, looking at the research, and then you're going to critique it. Is the research right? Is the research accurate? So that's what we'll be doing this week. I hope this video was helpful, and I look forward to reading your summary and critique. Have an excellent day.